What started as a one-night stand unexpectedly turned my life upside down when I became a dad. Now, I'm terrified of losing the woman I've fallen in love with and built my life around. I met Mila about 4 years ago at a bar. It was a mutual friend's birthday party, and both of us had just recently come out of long-term relationships. Mila had been with her ex for 5 years, and I had been with mine for 4. After a lot of drinking and mingling, the night took some unexpected turns. I woke up the next morning, disoriented, naked on the couch, with Mila beside me. It was awkward, to say the least, but honestly, that wasn't even the wildest thing that happened that night. The birthday guy did something far crazier, but that's a whole different story. Mila and I both felt incredibly awkward afterward. She seemed like she wanted to crawl under a rock, and I didn't feel much different. Neither of us was looking for anything serious at that point. We had just broken up with our exes, and neither of us was ready to dive into another relationship. Still, we exchanged numbers before going our separate ways. 3 months later, out of the blue, Mila texted me and asked if I wanted to grab coffee. I thought it was a little strange. Maybe she wanted to talk about what happened that night, or perhaps she was looking to go on a date. When I got there, she looked like she'd been crying, and as soon as I sat down, she broke down in tears. It turned out she was pregnant. She hadn't realized it earlier because she had been so stressed and exhausted, but after taking a test, it confirmed that I was the father. My world flipped upside down in an instant. Mila was understandably scared. She had been living with a roommate, and the prospect of raising a child in that situation wasn't ideal. So after a lot of discussions and a DNA test confirming I was the father, she moved in with me. The guest room was converted into her room, and my office became Andy's room. Andy, whose full name is Andreas, became the center of my life. Having a child wasn't part of my plan, but now that Andy was here, it was hard to imagine life without him. Honestly, I can say it's been the best, albeit most challenging, mistake I've ever made. Throughout this time, Mila and I didn't have a romantic relationship, except for one instance when she kissed me after Andy was born. We had settled into a comfortable routine of co-parenting. I supported Mila financially, paying for her grad school, and we divided household chores. I was there for anything she needed, and we got along well. I helped take care of Andy while Mila finished her studies. We didn't have any romantic tension or expectations, and while I loved her for everything she was, smart, beautiful, kind, caring, she was also a great friend and co-parent. As Andy's 3rd birthday approached, Mila and I discussed plans for his party. It was close to Halloween, so Andy wanted to dress up as Bingo from Bluey. It was shaping up to be a fun event, but during one of our conversations, Mila asked me if I wanted her to move out now that Andy was getting older. She suggested that we could co-parent separately, and I could even start dating someone if I wanted to. At that moment, I froze. I didn't know what to say. I was terrified of the idea of her leaving, but I didn't want to make things awkward by expressing feelings that I had buried deep inside. So, I said nothing and went to my room. The truth was, I was in love with her. Having Andy in my life had been a blessing, and I was proud to co-parent with Mila, but there was a deeper, more personal connection that I had never told her about. Mila was smart, beautiful, caring, thoughtful, and kind. She was everything I had ever wanted in a partner, and I couldn't bring myself to tell her how I truly felt. I was too afraid of ruining what we had as parents and friends. 2 days after posting about my dilemma, I finally worked up the courage to talk to Mila. I left work early, picked up Andy from nursery, and dropped him off at my mom's. I bought some flowers, cleaned up the house while she was in class, and texted her that she didn't need to pick up Andy. I needed to talk to her when she got home. When she arrived, she looked at me with wide, worried eyes. The first thing she asked about being our son. I reassured her that Andy was with my mom and doing just fine, and after a moment of relief, I'd led her to the living room. I gave her the bouquet and began what turned out to be a long conversation. I told her about my fear of ruining everything by revealing my feelings and how it had hurt me when she asked if she should move out. She admitted that she, too, had been afraid. She felt like a burden to me and blamed herself for ruining my life with the pregnancy. I immediately shut that down. I told her that since Andy and she had entered my life, things had been better than I could have imagined. Having them in my life, though challenging at times, had made it the most fulfilling mistake I'd ever made. Mila confessed that she had feelings for me as well, something that had developed when she was pregnant, but she had been unsure if it was just hormones. She felt embarrassed to share her feelings, especially since she hadn't felt comfortable in her post-pregnancy body and thought I wouldn't find her attractive. I told her that, to me, she was the most beautiful woman in the world. She also revealed that she had felt jealous when I went on dates, even though we weren't a couple. Honestly, if she she had gone on dates, I would have been just as jealous. We spent hours talking, deep, meaningful conversations that touched on personal topics. By the time we were done, it was late, so we decided to go to a small restaurant nearby for dinner. We didn't drink wine since I was driving, but the meal was great, and we talked about everything from music to movies. Mela went off on a song of Ice and Fire, and I rambled on about Lord of the Rings. We discussed life and random things. The night ended with a few sweet kisses in the car, almost like we didn't even live together anymore. Afterward, we went home, watched a horror movie. It was awful, but it didn't matter because Mila fell asleep cuddling with me. It was a perfect night, filled with wins, both big and small. Reflecting on that birthday party years ago, it turns out the birthday guy had done far worse things than anyone could have imagined. That night was chaotic, to say the least, and he ended up stealing a random dog from someone's house, got into a huge fight with his girlfriend, and hooked up with her sister. It was all a wild mess, but looking back on it, my life had taken a much different, much better path. I had Mila, I had Andy, and now I had finally found the courage to tell her how I felt.